The spark is just gone. I've lost feelings and I don't know why. These are some of the most painful words that you'll ever hear from your dismissive avoidant partner or your dismissive avoidant ex. Everything seemed wonderful. You were on cloud nine with this person. You thought you had your forever. And suddenly they're telling you that the spark is gone and they've just lost feelings. And to make matters worse, they don't even know why, and they're not even willing to work through it. What is going on here? You are likely questioning your worth. You are questioning if anything was ever even real. One day they're telling you how wonderful you are and how nobody ever made them feel the way that you do, and then suddenly they've lost feelings. If you're dealing with an avoidant, especially a dismissive avoidant or a fearful avoidant that leans heavily dismissive, you are dealing with somebody who confuses infatuation with love. A person that thinks that love is just this feeling of being on cloud nine and having butterflies, and not truly understanding what love actually entails. It's a choice, it's a commitment to choose and love that person every single day. But when you're dealing with a person that was on the receiving end of consistent childhood emotional neglect, they were never really shown how to process emotions. They were never really shown how to give and receive love. What did happen, however, is that they personalized that lack of love and affection that they received as a child, growing up with this deep wound of shame, that feeling like I'm defective. It must have been something wrong with them. That's why they didn't get the love they needed as a kid. So they put up these walls around their heart, and they keep their partner on the other side of the wall. Even when you think you're through that wall, you're not. And the reason these walls are up is because of that wound of shame, the subconscious fear. And some of them are consciously aware of it, but it largely lies in the subconscious. The fear is if I lower my walls and I let my partner in, my partner is going to figure me out and I'll be exposed as being defective and unlovable, and I'm going to get rejected. So emotional closeness feels unsafe, but emotional distance feels safe, because if there's emotional distance and not too much vulnerability, they don't risk getting rejected and being exposed as what they perceive themselves to be, which is defective and unlovable. So the relationship had been progressing well. Things had been going well. Emotional closeness was building. Emotional intimacy was building. The relationship was progressing. There were furthering advancements in commitment and the realness of the relationship. That is what triggered them. Things were getting too close. Early in the relationship, when they seemed all in, that was largely dopamine fueled. Dopamine is the reward hormone. It helps you feel good. That's what helps you feel infatuated. But the brain simply cannot sustain that heightened level of dopamine forever. So the dopamine tends to come down as the honeymoon phase ends, and that's usually somewhere between 4 to 8 months. Now, that dopamine is no longer masking their insecurities. So their insecurities are coming up to the surface, and things like emotional intimacy, vulnerability, furthering commitment, the realness of the relationship, perhaps some disagreements, now suddenly become enormously triggering to them. And because the dopamine level's going down, and they don't really self-reflect and they lack self-awareness because they avoid, they think they've lost feelings. They think they've lost the spark. And now that they're triggered, well, their instinct is to avoid. So they take the remaining feelings that they do have for their partner and they suppress them. They bury them. They don't allow themselves to access those feelings. Emotions weren't safe to express as a kid, so they're not safe to express as an adult. At least that's what their subconscious tells them. So they detach, distract themselves, and instinctively blame their partner for their urges to run, because if it becomes their partner's fault, they don't have to self-reflect, which would mean facing an inner wound of shame. Acknowledging wrongdoing, acknowledging shortcomings and insecurities is very hard for them, because in their own mind, if I acknowledge wrongdoing, it means I'm admitting to being defective and being unlovable. So it's all too painful. So they project it onto you. So you, on the other hand, are completely blindsided. But what really happened is you're on the receiving end of a person that's emotionally unavailable, a person that confuses infatuation for love. A person that, due to their walls, struggles to oxytocin bond to their partner. A person that avoids dealing with the issues, a person that avoids self-reflection. So you're dealing with a person that really doesn't have the capacity to do a healthy relationship. That can be very blindsiding because it seemed like they were showing up in a different way. But again, that was dopamine fueled. So no, it's not because you did anything wrong. It's not because you weren't enough for this person. Actually, the better you show up, the more you trigger them, because the more emotional intimacy builds and the more special they view you, the more they fear rejection from you. Those insecurities are not your fault. Their lack of ability to really understand the differences between love and infatuation are not your fault. Their difficulties in bonding are not your fault. Their difficulties with communication are not your fault. So don't beat yourself up and don't blame yourself for this. It's a reflection of them, their insecurities, and their lack of capacity. It's a very hard thing to go through because it was definitely real for you. And it was real for them to their capability. Not that it wasn't real at all. They really did legitimately think that you were the one for them, at least for a period of time. But because of those insecurities and those attachment wounds, at this point, until they do the deep inner work, which only they can do, you can't force them to, until they do that deep inner work, they just don't have the capacity to do the relationship that you're looking for.